guys, it's Eric, owner of Farpoint Farms here in the mountains of North Carolina, and today I'll be tackling one of the most simple but effective jobs you can do on your garden tractor to keep it running for a long time, and that is an oil change. This one has just over 25 hours now, and you're supposed to do these every 10 and then 25 hours after that, at least on this particular model. This is a TS354D, but the job that I'm going to be showing you, this is a Kawasaki 7000 series engine. It's pretty much the same no matter what. And there's just a few tools you're going to need. Honestly, tools, I mean, these are the tools. You're going to need a couple of rags to help clean up the mess. You're going to need a small piece of hose. Most of these come with a hose when you purchase them. This one was used, so it did not come with that. You'll need a drain pan, and you'll need some oil and an oil filter. Now, how much oil and what type of oil filter can be found on the inside? Here's a picture of this one right here. It'll show you a chart, shows you all the belts, oil capacities, oil types, and filter part numbers, you name it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'll go ahead and open this. Actually, I think what I might do is take this hood all the way off. You do not need to take the hood off to do this job, but I'm going to do it just so I can show you a little more clearly what I'm doing and while I'm doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the hood right now. And I'm going to set that off to the side here, but again, that's not necessary. But what you do need to remove is there'll be a plug here, and on the other side there's a plastic plug. You'll need to remove that. Usually you just stick your finger up from behind and push out. Once that's out of the way, this one doesn't have it because I have bracing on here for another implement, which will just pull up and slide these off. Both sides will need to be removed. On this side is the oil filter. It sits right here, and on the other side is the oil drain. We'll move the camera to the other side here and drain it out. But first, if you haven't already, let the mower run for a good 15 minutes. That's going to warm up that oil. Any garbage, any trash that's in that oil will go from settling down at the bottom, if it sits overnight, to being suspended in the oil itself. And you want that dirt, that trash, that carbon buildup to exit when you do the oil change. So go ahead and warm it up if you haven't already. Now I am going to take the drain plug and just lift it up a little bit like that, or the dipstick here. I'm going to lift it up, and that'll allow the oil to flow a little more easily. So we're going to move over to the other side now with my drain pan and my hose, and we'll get this thing going. Okay, so right here the other cover sits, and you can see there's some cables here. This piece right here is the starter motor, and then below it, and you can kind of just barely see it, but right there I've placed my oil pan. Now I'm going to zoom the camera in, and you'll see that right here is where we need to be working from. Now this yellow piece right here, you can see it back there, that is the drain. This has a quick drain, and there's a little rubber black cap. We'll go ahead and pop that loose. Now again, yours should have come with a hose, but I've just taken some garden hose here, and I'm going to attach that to it, and then I'm going to turn that valve, and that should begin the drain process fairly rapidly. This thing is going to lose its fluid. There we go. And you can see here the oil begins to drain out, and you're going to let that go. I would just go ahead and take a break, let that do its thing. It's going to take a while to drain completely. You don't want to rush the experience. Then, like I said, this is fairly warm oil, so it will drain fairly quickly. And as you can see, I think it's showing up fairly well in the video. This oil is not terribly dirty. You can see it's kind of still that amber color. Now there are two trains of thought. You can change this every 50 hours. Or you can change it every 25. I go with 25. In fact, I do my very first oil change usually at 10 hours on a mower. Now, there's no, there's no real reason not to. Oil is inexpensive enough, and filters can be had for $5 or $6 at the local hardware store. So I recommend going ahead and doing that. I'll go ahead and zoom this thing back out, and we'll just let this go ahead and drain. One thing you do want to do as this continues to drain is you want to be smelling it. Does it smell like motor oil, or does it have a little bit of a smell like gas in it? If it smells like gas, that may be an indication that you've got an issue with your carburetor running too rich, and it's maybe time to replace filters or even look at having the carburetor cleaned. I've made other videos showing you how to clean carburetors. This one is very similar to those that I've shown, but there probably is one for the specific model floating around on the internet somewhere. Anyway, I'm going to let this continue to drain for probably another minute or so, and then we will close this up, move to the other side for the oil filter itself. All right, once it's pretty well finished up, I'm going to go ahead and push in and rotate that to lock it. I'll go ahead and remove my hose, let that drain a little more, and you'll see that there's still a little bit of a mess here. We want to clean that up. If at all possible, you want to avoid getting any of this oil on your drive belts or deck belts. That would really mess things up for you, cause slippage and premature belt wear. So I go ahead and wipe all that out as best as I can. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and put my cap back on there. And I am going to double check to make sure that that is closed, because if this were to pop open, if this were to open while I was driving, it wouldn't take hardly any time at all, and that engine would be done for. So that's it. I'm going to move over to the other side, move the oil pan over to the other side. We'll replace the filter, and we'll be ready to put this back together again, and we'll be back to mowing in no time. All right, here we are on this side. We're going to be removing this filter. Again, a little bit, well, you can kind of see the corner of it. I've got the drain pan positioned underneath it. One thing you do need to know with this is you're definitely also going to lose some oil. You don't want to try to make sure that you clean up any spills pretty rapidly, because you don't want that dripping down and getting on the belt. So sometimes you might need to use a tool. Other times these will come off fairly easily. This one's going to be coming off without the use of a tool, which is nice. And here we go. So this one actually has, I'm kind of wondering if this has already had an oil change, because this has an STP filter. I wasn't aware they were using those from the factory. And when we take that off, you're going to see oil is going to come out of here. And we'll go ahead and try to clean up as much of that as we can. Push it forward, try not to get it rolling back there. There we go. And we'll just sit that underneath there to collect that. And in the meantime, we'll take our new filter here. I'll take a little bit of that oil that's coming out and use that to lubricate the oil seal, just a little bit, right like that. And once we've got that on there, just screw that back into place. You don't want to go crazy tight on this. You don't want it backing off, but you also don't want it to be impossible to take off the next time you do. You can actually pinch that gasket too tightly and end up with a bigger problem than the one you're trying to solve. So again, just be mindful, everything in moderation when it comes to these oil changes. And as you can see, I'm just cleaning up any stuff that was left over. I'll clean the inside a little bit too if I can get to it. There we go. That's all there is to it. Now it is time to go ahead and get ourselves a little funnel right here, and we'll start refilling this up. This one we've checked, and it takes 48 ounces of 5W30 synthetic, 10W30 synthetic, or regular old 10 weight. I've got 10 weight right here, and that's what I'm going to be using today. All right, here we go. I'm going to pull that out, clean that off and set it to the side right here. Go ahead and insert a funnel, and slowly, not quickly, but slowly pour in 48 ounces of fluid. I got one brand new one. This is actually 64 ounces is what this calls for, so I'll be putting in one full and a little bit more. So here we go. Great, now here's a trick for you. I usually keep these empties, because that way I empty out my oil bucket right back into them. I can recycle those in town. I'll let that drain for a little bit. We will fire this thing up, check for leaks, shut it down, count to about 20, and then double check the oil level, and we'll be ready to get back to cutting. All right, let's start it up and see what happens. So we're checking for leaks. I don't see anything leaking out on the ground here. That's a good sign. I'm going to give it a second or two for that fluid to kind of drip back down into the pan. And then we will double check our fluid level, top it off if we need to, reassemble our panels, put our hood back on, and it's go time. And it's a little hard for you to see here on the camera, but it looks like I nailed it on the first try, which is kind of unusual. Sure did, right at the full mark. Perfect. That's it. Let me go ahead and put my paneling back on. We're time to hit the road. Nothing to it, right? Look, this job, if you take this thing down to the hardware store and have it done, or take it to a small engine shop to have it done, will cost $60 to $80. I paid 1.5 quarts of fluid here. This was $3 at the local hardware store, and the oil filter was $5. So let's call it $12 for the whole job. And you get the satisfaction knowing that it was done right because you did it yourself. I'm Eric, the owner of Farpoint Farms. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, perhaps you'll think about liking and subscribing, because I'll be making many more videos just like it. Until then, I'll see you next time. Take care.
There's always something that needs a little fixing on Farpoint Farms. Freedom is mighty sweet. Liberty sows its seed at Farpoint.